Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Good afternoon. First, thank you very much to the Bar Association for having us and your hospitality and your courtesy. Let's give them a big round of applause. To all my colleagues who are here from the state level and from the federal level, all the legal advocates, all the community advocates, thank you all very much for being here. You'll hear from Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who we are so excited about the work he's doing and how he has been representing the state and the nation. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. You're going to hear from Speaker Corey Johnson, who has been at the forefront of this issue, and we're honored to have him. Speaker Corey Johnson. And Malcolm Homeline, who's the Executive Vice Chair of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. Malcolm has been the champion and the leader and the sage, wise counsel on issues like this as long as I can remember, and we're honored to have him. Malcolm Homeline. To Rosanna Rosado, who is a great Secretary of State, I would say you were the best Secretary of State in history. The problem there is my father was Secretary of State. And if I were to say that, my mother would be upset, a bolt of lightning would come down right now, and it would be all over. But you are an extraordinary Secretary of State. We're honored to have you, Rosanna Rosado. And let me thank you all for being here today. I know it's August, I know it's during vacation and during recess, and normally we're not working at this time, but these are no ordinary times. We are living a recurring American nightmare. The 22 mostly Latino victims in El Paso are the most recent innocents to fall victim to the scourge of hate. The devastation of these continuing horrific events leaves us literally grasping for words. Why? Because there are no words. And politicians' expressions, offering thoughts and prayers, are now almost insulting when they should be taking action and passing laws. When we look back at this era, we will see that this has been one of the most polarizing and divisive in our history. A society indelibly scarred by the toxic cocktail of guns and hate. Now, sadly, hate is nothing new in our country. Diversity is the American DNA, and differences can cause fear and hatred. And good Lord knows that our country bears the scars of that hatred. The Ku Klux Klan, the Tulsa race riot of 1921, killing hundreds of African Americans, the Texas massacre in 1918, when Texas Rangers summarily executed 15 Mexicans. But we thought that was part of our ugly yesterday, not our reality today, and not threatening our tomorrow. When Abraham Lincoln asked whether a nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure, he was asking the fundamental, perpetual question that every generation of Americans must answer. And it was answered at Gettysburg, it was answered on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, it was answered on 9/11, and today the American people are calling us to answer that same question once more. The truth is, the flames of hatred have been stoked to a raging fire that threatens to burn down the American house that Lincoln envisioned. Ironically, today's hate does not discriminate. We have seen hateful acts against African Americans in Charleston, Jews in Pittsburgh, Muslims in New York, Latinos in El Paso, and the LGBTQ community in Orlando. The hate is targeted to others, other religions, other orientations, other races, other creeds. Except this is America. We are all others. We are a nation of others. But our problem is not hate alone. Hate alone can pick up a rock, it can pick up a club, it can shatter a life. But we are facing the lethal combination of hate and guns. Now, the president said after El Paso that mental illness pulls the trigger. First of all, this president says a lot of things. But the president knows the obvious truth. If there is no gun, there is no trigger. If there is no gun, there is no trigger. The president's partisan political self-interest has trumped his responsibility to protect the public. His government has failed the American people. When I was in Israel 3 weeks ago, I visited Yad Vashem again. And there was a quote that is all too relevant today. A country is not just what it does, it is also what it tolerates. We must have no tolerance for this rampage of hateful violence. So if the federal government won't act, or if the federal government can't act, New York State will. And we must begin by recognizing the crisis for what it is, because you will never solve a problem in life that you are unwilling to admit. And today, New York State truly acknowledges the ugly truth that we have an enemy within, an American cancer where one cell in the body politic attacks the other cells in the body. It spreads in the hidden corners of the internet and from the highest positions in the land. And it infects sick and hate-filled hearts. This new violent epidemic is hate-fueled American-on-American terrorism. We still treat terrorism as an act committed by foreigners. It is, but that is only part of it. It is now a two-front war on terrorism. It is fed by hate, but hate from abroad and hate right here at home. White supremacists, anti-Semites, anti-LGBTQ, white nationalists. These are Americans committing mass hate crimes against other Americans, and it should be recognized for what it is: domestic terrorism. These are American citizens who are radicalized, not by a foreign ideology, but rather radicalized by hate for other Americans. But that is still terrorism. Today, our people are 3 times more likely to suffer a terrorist attack launched by an American than one launched by a foreigner. Now, this is not just repulsive, it's not just immoral, it's not just anti-American, it is illegal. And we must confront it by enacting a new law to fit the crime. And that's why today I propose that New York State pass a national precedent, a Hate Crimes Domestic Terrorism Act for any person who kills in a mass attack on the basis of race, religion, creed, or sexual orientation. Thank you. Thank you. The penalty should be the same as it is for other terrorism crimes, up to life without parole. Because these are hate crimes on steroids. They are mass hate crimes, and they are terrorism. And the punishment should fit the crime, period, and in the state of New York, it will. Now, as we address the cancer of hate, we must also address the instrumentality of the hate. And that is the syringe that injects the cancer into the American body. And that is guns. Guns in the wrong hands, and guns that are extraordinarily dangerous. Now, the federal government is not impotent on this issue. It is politically paralyzed. The federal government can and has tackled this issue before. In 1934, to combat gangsterism, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed legislation to regulate machine guns and sawed-off shotguns. In 1968, in the wake of the assassinations of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, the federal government passed legislation banning mail-order gun sales. And in 1994, the Clinton administration enacted a 10-year ban on assault weapons, and it instituted the first system for background checks. So we know the federal government can do it when you have the political will. And here in New York, we saw what was going to happen. We saw the violent future in the bloodshed of the Sandy Hook massacre. That was 6 years ago. And we acted. We passed the SAFE Act, the same law that the nation still needs to pass today. It is the same law the nation should pass today. Ban assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and universal background checks. Close all those loopholes. The SAFE Act was 6 years ago, before another 2,458 Americans were killed, and before another 9,000 were wounded. Now, passing the SAFE Act wasn't easy. It was hard, but it was right. And also, it showed that all the NRA's fear-mongering was false. There was no slippery slope. No one's gun was taken. In 6 years, no one has ever complained to me that they have been denied a gun that they were legally entitled to own. The SAFE Act shows that you can do this, and you can do it intelligently, and you can protect people from dangerous weapons and still respect legal gun owners' rights. Now, people ask today if El Paso is a tipping point. Is El Paso a moment of change? I say there is no magical moment that creates change. Leadership creates the change. The SAFE Act didn't just happen. The New York legislature had to choose between the gun lobby and public safety. And they had to do it in the aftermath of a horrendous tragedy. And it was a tough vote. But the New York State legislature stood up, they took that courageous vote, and they passed it, and they did it on a bipartisan basis. Washington Democrats must show today that they have the leadership to bring change to the country. They must expose this president and the Republican senators as the political cowards they are and the lackeys for the gun industry that they serve. This is no time for Democratic division or for legislative baby steps. Members of the Senate, Congress, and every Democratic presidential candidate should put aside their own personal politics, stand up to the gun lobby, and offer a strong, unified, comprehensive gun proposal to end the carnage once and for all. It's the Democrats who must expose the president's failure of leadership and political pandering by now providing a clear alternative. And then in turn give the American people a real choice. And they will make the right decision because they want common sense gun reform We just need to make the political establishment follow the people rather than the people following the political establishment. Now, my friends, we know that New York State is at her best when she leads the nation through troubled times. And we do it by reminding Americans what America really means. We lead by example, by what we do, by passing the best gun law in the nation, and now by proposing a new terrorism law to combat our new American terrorists. This is going to be the first law of its kind in the nation. We also lead by the way we live. 19 million New Yorkers from countries all across the globe, different languages, races, religions, cultures, sexual orientations, all forging one community, one people, standing together, believing that when you attack one of us, you attack all of us. That is New York. That is New York. The sense that we are one community, we are one people, we come from different places, but when you come here, you are part of the family of New York, the family of America. And there is an interconnection, and there is an interrelation, and there's a cord that connects you to you, to you, to you, and you can't see that cord, but it weaves an invisible web and a fabric, and we're all part of that fabric. And in that fabric, when one of us is raised, we're all raised. And when one of us is lowered, we are all lowered. That is the American ideal. That's the New York reality. That's what community means. All for one, one for all. That's the only way we make it. That what happens to you happens to me. And that we will stand together when any of us are attacked. That when the Orthodox Jewish men were attacked in Brooklyn this week, we were all attacked. We believe that when the swastikas were painted on the walls in Ulster County, we were all attacked. When the LGBTQ bar in Harlem was attacked, we were all attacked. When the Hindu priest was beaten in Floral Park last month, we were all attacked. That when the imam in Queens was killed, we were all attacked. That when the shots were fired in El Paso, they were fired at all of us. That is New York, and it is that simple and it is that profound. And Mr. President, if you want to lead this nation, then learn the three words that founded this nation. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. Mr. President, stop dividing, start unifying, save American lives, and New York State will lead the way. Thank you, and God bless you.